Okay, this is just going to be a brief analysis of the essay, The Bystander Effect, that you needed to have read this week as a model of the essay that you'll be writing over the next few weeks, and that is the problem solution persuasive essay. I'm going to take a look at this and see what we can learn from it as writers, because in order to read like a writer, we need to always be looking for um, examples that we can glean and information that we can glean from the writing style and how it's presented. Uh, it's important that you read this essay before listening to this analysis. You need to read it and have your own reaction to it and your own thoughts before you come and listen to this. It will make a lot more sense if you've read it first. Okay, first we'll start with the introduction. This introduction is, I think, an effective introduction. It puts you, the reader, right into a hypothetical situation and involves you from the very beginning, rather than just starting out in a dry way saying, in this essay I'm going to talk about the bystander effect. Instead of that, it immediately puts you into a hypothetical scenario and asks you what you would do. So you as a reader, you're involved from the very beginning. This next paragraph describes the problem in general terms. It says there's this phenomenon of the bystander effect, and people are reluctant to intervene in emergency situations. It says there are reasons that we know this happens, some obvious reasons, such as we're afraid of danger, we're afraid of getting in a situation that could be complicated or time-consuming or cause legal hassles. It says these things are obvious. In this next paragraph, this is really where the thesis comes. It says there are obvious reasons, but there are less obvious factors as well. It says there are complex psychological factors which many are unaware of that play an important part in the behavior of bystanders. Knowing about these can help people to act more responsibly when faced with emergencies. This sets up the problem and offers the solution. So here, these psychological factors are the problem in the bystander effect. Knowing about these is really the solution. And notice it doesn't tell us what the psychological factors are, and it doesn't quite tell us how it's going to solve the problem. It just sets this up so that we can expect it as readers. Okay, this paragraph here, or this sentence here, serves as an important transition. It's transitioning into one of the most emotionally powerful stories in the piece, and this helps us to understand. It's just an important signpost that basically tells the reader, says, okay reader, I'm going to tell you a story now. That seems simple, but it's actually really important to have those little signposts throughout an essay to let your reader know where you're going. This story of Kitty Genovese is pretty outrageous, and the author chooses to go into quite a bit of detail, kind of a blow-by-blow scenario here of how this situation unfolds. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why this detail about the stabbing and about the screams for help, and why are we dragged through this terrible crime? And I think the answer to that is pretty obvious, is that, again, we become emotionally involved in the story as readers. Okay, we become a little bit outraged when we hear this, when we read this story. And so, again, it involves us more deeply into the problem that the author is discussing. We see it truly as a problem after reading this story. So the detail is important, and the emotion that it invokes is important. Emotion does have a place in persuasive writing. Let's move on here and look at another example. There's another outrageous example of a rape situation that, again, we are taken even deeper into the problem to see that this truly is a problem that deserves our attention. When we come down here to this paragraph, this serves as an important transition, but finally we're getting to what the thesis promised, and that is this discussion of the quote, complex psychological factors. We haven't heard anything about those for the whole essay, and now here, almost toward the end of the essay, we're finally getting to that. And so you have to ask why. Why did the writer choose to spend so much time in the problem? And I think the answer to that is because by the time we get here, we are pretty outraged and we are hungry for the solution. We truly see that this is a problem. We're convinced now that this is a problem that deserves our attention, and we are ready for the solution or the explanation for this. If the essay had started out just saying, people don't get involved in emergencies because of these 2 reasons, and that's how the essay began, if that were the case, it would not grab our attention. We might not even believe that it's much of a problem, worthy of our time and attention to read about. As it is now, though, we've been involved deeply enough in the problem where we see that it's a problem, and we're anxious to hear the solution. This sentence here is an important transition. It's setting up. It says there are 2 factors. The first one is this, and then we expect to read about the first psychological factor. This sentence is an important transition into the second factor. These little signposts just, again, tell the reader, here's where I'm going, come along with me, so we don't get lost in the argument. Okay, this paragraph indicates the solution to the problem. And it basically says that if we know about these psychological factors, that is the solution. That knowing about it will help us act better next time around. The concluding sentence here is, remember Kitty Genovese. And so this is the last image. It was the most powerful story of the essay, and so the author here intentionally refers our mind back to that. So that's the last image that we have that lingers with us. And that helps us, again, remember the severity of this problem and the importance of doing something about it. So hopefully pointing out some of these components of this essay, some of the things that are working in here effectively, will help you as you write your essays.